In this video, I'll be wiring up the camper van electrics. Stick around to the end of the video where I'll do a full run through of the whole electrical system on the van. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It's free to do and it really helps the channel grow. I started the electrics by wiring up the solar charge controller to the battery, just to test that it was all working correctly. There's no point in doing all the wiring to find out you've got an issue further down the line. I then connected the solar panel to the charge controller to test this was working too, before it was mounted on the roof. Make sure if you're connecting a solar system to always connect the battery to the charge controller before connecting the solar panel. If you don't have the battery connected, the solar panel can actually fry the charge controller as there's nowhere for it to send the power. Once I knew everything was working correctly, I could start fitting it all properly. I used a piece of 12mm MDF to mount all the electrics to and fitted this under the storage bench behind the passenger seat. The leisure battery, which is a 130 amp hour battery, is housed under the passenger seat, so this is an ideal place to mount the electrics to run the wires between the charge controller and the battery. I just drilled some holes through the MDF and the seat frame backing board to run the cables through. The first thing I mounted to the MDF was the solar charge controller. This is basically the brains of the solar system. This takes the power from the solar panels and sends it to the battery to charge. I could then connect the solar panel cables to the charge controller. The solar panel was just laid next to the van as it wasn't installed yet. This is the charge controller. You can see here the solar panel icon showing that the solar panel is charging the battery, and then the light bulb icon which shows the 12 volt power is being sent from the charge controller to the load. The 12 volt load is then connected to a fuse board, so the power is sent from the battery into the charge controller and then from the charge controller to a central fuse board. So basically what we've got here is battery positive, battery negative, they connect to the battery and power the charge controller. Then you've got the solar positive and the solar negative, they go to the solar panel, and then that brings in the power through the charge controller and into the battery to charge the battery. And then this is the load, and basically the load then runs to this fuse box, and we've only got one thing plugged in at the minute. From the fuse box you then run your positive cables out of here, so you can put 12 different things out of here. So currently we've got a cigarette lighter charger port connected. This is going to be the fridge connection. And basically what you do is you connect your positives, like say, to there, and your negatives to here. These all basically join together, they're like one. And then you put your fuse in, so it's fused. So from here we can have the lights, the fan, charging sockets, can't remember what else we've got, our water pump, that sort of thing. And you just pop the fuse in for each one. So I've got different rated fuses here. So yeah, from there we'll run cables to stuff like this, which are USB sockets. We've got the water pump, the lights, the fan, so everything will run back to this board. At the minute I've just got the solar panels set up outside, but yeah, they'll basically be behind there, and then they'll run up one of the pillars depending on which side I put the solar panels, up out through the roof, and then connect through to the solar panels.
I fitted this cigarette lighter charging point into the seat base, which is designed to charge the fridge mainly, but can be used for any other accessories that fit that port. The cables will then run through the hole and then clip to the back of the seat base. I fitted a double USB socket to the divider here, ideal for charging phones next to the bed. And then I ran the cables down through the divider, under the bed, and then the cables run behind the kitchen cupboards, along the side of the van, behind the bench seat, and get connected into the fuse board. All the other cables were added in a similar fashion. You might have seen in an earlier video where I ran the fan cable in Conduit along the side of the van. I'll show you this at the end of the video in the full run through. All of the cables run from the fuse board on an individual basis, meaning each one is fused individually for additional safety. It also makes it nice and easy to see if there's any issues if a fuse blows on the fuse board. I decided to add some isolator switches after starting the electrics, so usually this would have been first, but I'll explain these in a second.
Excuse the mess, we haven't quite tidied up yet. Basically what we've added here is a switch. If you see this symbol, that means the solar panels are on and charging, as you can see from the battery going up and down. If we switch this switch off, solar panel is no longer charging. Switch it back on. So it's an isolator switch for the solar panels, so you can turn them on and off. Then this one down the bottom is connected to the fuse board. If you turn that off, everything turns off. So if you look in there, if I turn it on, turn it off, same with the light, turn it off, turn it on. So it's just so you can isolate those. And rather than turning the solar charge controller off, because if you don't know what you're doing with them, if you turn the charge controller off but don't turn the solar off first, you can basically fry this, because it's got the power coming in but it's got nowhere to put the power. Basically this needs to send the power to the battery, so that's why you plug in the battery first, so they go to the battery, and then you can do your solar second. You can't put your solar in first, you have to have the battery in first. So again, if I put the switch on the battery, someone could have accidentally turned that off, left the solar on, and then you can fry your charge controller. It's obviously easy enough to access the battery. This is all going to be boxed in, and if you wanted to disconnect the battery, if it was being left for a while, you just undo that, take one of the terminals off, and it's all disconnected. But again, that would have to be turned off first, because that wouldn't obviously be then connected to the battery.
Right, so I've kind of shown you the basic process as I've gone, but I want to show you obviously like a full sort of overview of everything, because it's a little bit easier to then get your head round. So electrics are housed here. What we've got is everything in there. Let me just show you where the battery is. Leisure battery is under there, all boxed in with smart battery isolator, which has been added since. I'm going to be doing a separate video on that, but that basically means the alternator charges the vehicle battery, which is under here, and then when that's charged enough, it then sends power to the leisure battery so that your leisure battery gets charged off your vehicle battery. So I haven't, on this video, I won't have fitted the solar panels yet, but they are run in the roof down through this conduit, which I'll show you obviously on the fitting video, and they run down and they come in here to the solar charge controller. So what we have here is, this is the solar charge controller, and this is connected first to the battery, which is here. So that powers this up, and then the solar panels are connected to this, and basically that means the power that the solar panels are bringing in, which is what you can see here, gets brought into the charge controller, and that then means the power is sent to the battery to charge the battery. And as you can see from the little battery logo there, battery icon, the battery is being charged by the solar panels. Then this little button, this little icon here, the light bulb, that's the load. So that shows the loads on. I believe if you hold this down, that'll turn the load off. So on the charge controller, you've also got 2 USB sockets, so you can charge things directly from there. But you've also got the load. So these 2 cables are the load. The load basically comes out and goes into this fuse box. This fuse box is basically what powers everything in the van. This yellow bit here is an inverter. Now this isn't run from the charge controller or the fuse box, this is run directly to the battery. So that's run directly to the battery through the back of here onto the battery terminals. We've also got some isolator switches. So this isolator switch, if I turn this off, you'll see the solar panel be turned off. So there you go. And when I turn this back on, there's the solar panel back on. Then this isolator down the bottom, this one is to turn the load off. So if I turn this off, you'll just notice the lights turn off, and then I turn it back on, lights go back on. So the inverter has 2 USB sockets as well. This is just turned on by a little switch there and off again. That runs your 240 volt 3-pin plugs, and as you can just about see from there, shows the voltage that's coming into it and the voltage that's going out of it, and it's a 4000 watt inverter, so it can run pretty much everything you need, even though it's a nice small one. So right, I'll show you the wiring now. On this fuse box, as you can see from this diagram, we've got firstly the USB socket. So the cables all run behind here, along here, behind the cupboard, and then that comes into this double USB charging socket. So next up we've got the fan, and the cable basically runs along the back of this seat, up here in that conduit, and then it continues in conduit behind these cupboards in the actual steel structure of the van, into the front here, and then it's just turn on and off with that button. Then the next few spaces you'll see, 3, 4, 5, 6 and also 11 and 12, they're empty. I could have got a fuse board that would have fit 6 fuses, but I thought I may as well get one that fits more, because any additional wiring that's added in future or any additional appliances can then easily be added straight to the fuse board, nice and safely, and really easy to fit as well. So it just means things can be really easily retrofitted. Next up's the accessory outlet, which is the cigarette lighter here. So that's got the fridge plugged in currently, and I added just a switch to this so that you could turn the fridge on and off, because you don't actually have to run it all the time, and obviously it uses a lot of power. The fridge is housed in this cupboard, and then the cable just runs along the back of that cupboard, and yeah, it's all brand new, so yeah, doesn't really get run yet. Next up, passenger side overhead light, and then driver side overhead light as well. They're on their own separate fuses, but basically these run up this piece of conduit in here into another piece of conduit that runs round the back of the cab, back above the cab, sorry, and then one of them comes here into a small bit of conduit that goes to there, and the other one here, which runs round, like I say, in a bit of conduit, which you can't really see because it's too dark, all the way around, and they're just powered by this remote control, which is also dimmable and programmable, so that can also be programmed on there, which is good. The final thing we have on here is the water pump. So the cable runs around again round here, and then the water pump is this cable here, and this runs up to a cable on the tap, because it's electric switching tap. And then I'm not going to turn it on because I obviously don't want to pour water everywhere, because I haven't got anything to mop the water up with. But yeah, turn that on, a switch turns on, it turns the pump on, and then water is pumped obviously into the tap, and therefore into the sink. So yeah, that's the main electrical system on the van. It's all pretty straightforward. Just put that cover back on. What I've done is I've just numbered all the fuses on this cover, and then if a fuse blows, or if one of the lights went out, you can see, right, passenger side overhead light is number 8. Number 8, you'll see which fuse needs to be changed. If a fuse does blow, it actually lights up on here, so it's quite easy to see which fuse is blown. But obviously if you want to then see what actual appliance is gone, or what bit of equipment, you can obviously match the fuse number up to that little diagram. And then you've also got like the solar info on there, and the charge controller sort of instructions and stuff, which I just left there just in case you ever needed it, but it's all, like I say, pretty straightforward. So yeah, that's the overview of all the electrics. Like I say, it's all pretty easy. It's basically all 12 volt system apart from the inverter, which is completely separate, wired to the battery. If you've got any questions about any of this, I'm not an expert or an electrician, but I've done a few solar setups and obviously a lot of research into it. So if you've got any questions, give me a shout in the comments below. I'll try and help you out. or if not, there'll probably be someone in the comments who knows even more than me who might be able to answer for you. So yeah, thank you as always for watching. I don't actually know what I'm going to be covering in the next video, but you'll see that on the end screen. So give this video a like, please subscribe to help the channel grow, and I'll see you in the next video.